Έρχομαι στα ελληνικού ενδιαφέροντος ερωτήματα, κύριε Πρόεδρε. Η ελληνική οικονομική κρίση ξέσπασε όσο ήσασταν πρόεδρος της Ευρωπαϊκής Επιτροπής. Είχε προειδοποιήσει η Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή την Ελλάδα για το ενδεχόμενο, πριν από το 2009, για το ενδεχόμενο της χρεοκοπίας?
No. No, because we did not know the figures. That's the reality. We warned Greece about the very high level of deficit, but let's be frank. It was Prime Minister Papandreou that came one day to the European Council. I was in that European Council and said, the real deficit of Greece is not this one. It is, I don't remember now, how many times this one. By the way, we were suspicious. And the commission, my first commission, we have proposed a regulation to give powers to the Eurostat to go and make internal audits in the accounts of our member states. But it was rejected by our member states, namely by the biggest member state. It was not by Greece. That said, this is too intrusive. We cannot give the Commission or the Eurostat those powers. It was only after my second mandate, only after 2009, that I spoke with Angela Merkel, and then finally they agreed to give the Eurostat the powers that they have today to go and check the national accounts of our countries. This is the reality. By the way, let's not forget one thing. Before the case of Greece, we already had other cases of the countries not respecting Stability and Growth Pact, including during the Prodi Commission, before me, France and Germany. But of course, the case of Greece was much more serious because it was much more high, the deficit, and the figures that we were receiving were not accurate. So we could not act before knowing those figures, and we had no instruments at European level to verify, to check the credibility of those figures. Today, the European Union has those instruments that were put forward by my second commission, but it was after 2009, when finally our governments gave us the green light to go with more, let's say, capacity of external audit of the national accounts.
Τώρα, με βάση όσα γνωρίζετε, πόσο κοντά έφτασε η Ελλάδα στην έξοδο από την Ευρωζώνη, στο Brexit?
Very close.
Very close.
Very close. It was a very dramatic moment because it was an unprecedented crisis because of its magnitude. And there were also, let's put it frankly, people in some of our countries and also outside that were in favor of putting Greece out of the euro. I was in some of those discussions, and the Commission position was always, let's keep Greece in the euro. I remember meetings I had also in the United States, in G8, in the G20, where I was defending the European Union, saying, I believe you are going to avoid Greece leaving the euro, and my colleagues were saying, come on, José Manuel, you have to say that because you are Commission President, but you know very well that Greece is going to leave the euro. And that was the position of some people in the IMF, I have to say, complete mistake, and also in some countries, including in Germany, where part of the system in Germany was in favor, in the Netherlands, of putting Greece out of the euro. The Commission position was always, let's keep Greece in the euro, also because of Greece, first of all. The Greek people, they want to remain in the euro, but still today 71% of the people. So we have to respect the will of the people of Greece, but also because of the contagion effects. I am Portuguese. I knew perfectly well that if Greece was going down, the immediate country will be Portugal, second, and then Spain, and then Italy, and then we could have the end of the euro. I played a role speaking with Angela Merkel several times, saying why she should keep a commitment to Greece and the euro area. I appealed to her prudence instincts. I told her, do you want to jump in the dark? If Greece leaves the euro, if there is a default, look at what happened in Argentina. A default is awful. It can be a civilian revolt, or it can be a military putsch. That's what I said to Angela Merkel, because I know about her prudent instincts. And at the end, by the way, to be fair, Angela Merkel was in favor of Greece remaining in the euro. But that was not unanimous in the German system or in other countries. So yes, it was a very difficult moment. For instance, in 2011, in the G20, the famous meeting where I was also participating with Nicolas Sarkozy, Angela Merkel, and George Papandreou, the idea of that referendum in the middle of the crisis, that was, of course, extremely risky at that moment, not only for Greece, but for all the other countries. So I think we have avoided what could have been very worse, very bad. Of course, it was very painful, I know, how difficult this issue was for Greece, politically, economically, socially, emotionally. But in politics, we have always to think about the alternatives. Will the alternative be better? Leaving the euro, I'm completely convinced that it would have been much worse for Greece and for the euro area.
Τώρα, η Ελλάδα έμεινε στα μνημόνια 8 χρόνια. Μπήκαμε το 2010 και βγήκαμε τον Αύγουστο του 2018. Γιατί άλλες ευρωπαϊκές χώρες, όπως η δική σας χώρα, η Πορτογαλία, η Ισπανία, η Ιρλανδία, η Κύπρος, βγήκαν από το τούνελ πιο γρήγορα από ότι η Ελλάδα?
No. Several reasons. Some were lack of luck, may say, because Greece was the first country that came with that crisis. So there was not sufficient instruments at that time, so the markets were more suspicious at the beginning. And when we had to deal with the case of Portugal or the case of Cyprus, we already were able to have some instruments. First case. Secondly, Greece was by far the highest level of public debt ratio to the GDP, high and still is, higher than any other in Europe. The second, by the way, is Italy in GDP ratio. Third, there was a fundamental mistrust on the Greek authorities because of the figures that were not right ones. So there was a breach of confidence. And when there is a breach of confidence, that is extremely difficult to deal with, because in the Eurogroup, in the Euro area, it's a club. If when one person goes there and what he or she says it's not accurate, the others will no longer trust. And it takes more time to rebuild trust. But basically, I think the reason why it took more time in Greece, for instance, 3 programs in Portugal was only necessary 1, is that in those other countries, Ireland, for instance, there was a big consensus, let's do it. We don't like the program, but let's do it. While here in Greece, people were all the time discussing, with the threat of a first referendum, that there was a second referendum, and there was a referendum afterwards, and that cost a lot of billions of euros that were going out for Greece, and the debt sustainability analysis of the IMF increased 80 billion euros, so it was much more painful because of political lack of coherence. So it was extremely painful, the case of Greece, I know that, because of political mistakes made here, I have to say very frankly, because now I'm no longer in politics, so my level of sincerity is increasing day by day. I'm telling you with full independence what I think. I'm not representing any institution, public or private. I'm speaking my mind. There were mistakes done in this country, but also the Europeans, to be frank. The European side also made mistakes because first of all, we were not prepared for this dimension. We were not prepared. And secondly, some of our countries, I think, could have been more generous in showing solidarity. You can imagine myself being Portuguese. I was on the side of the more vulnerable countries. I was always asking the countries to do more, the richer countries. But at the end, it's like that. It's a compromise. Europe is a compromise. So I think we have to recognize that there were shared responsibilities. But frankly, the reason why it was more difficult here than in other European countries, I think it was mainly because of internal political mistakes made here.
Θα διαβάσω μία φράση σας, κύριε Πρόεδρε, από μία συνέντευξη που δώσατε στο BBC και την οποία παρακολούθησα με πολύ μεγάλο ενδιαφέρον. Είπατε, δεν υπάρχει κάτι που να εμποδίζει την Ελλάδα από το να είναι επιτυχημένη, όμως κακοί πολιτικοί δημιούργησαν πολλά προβλήματα στη χώρα. Το είπατε το 2015. Το πιστεύετε ακόμη αυτό?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's true. I think politics matter. And as I've said, the fact that there was not a consensus here had a very high cost for Greece. once again, it was not only a fault here, there were also responsibilities outside. Having said that, I think the politics here were much, much more difficult than in other countries. In Ireland, there was an immediate consensus. In Portugal, it was difficult, but still, the government was not hesitating all the time. The government took a decision and approved that. In Spain, they had a program just for the banks, but they took a very hard decision how to deal with the banks, and they solved it in a record time. And this could not happen in Greece because Greece was always trying to find a way of doing something else. And in that case, when we are in a desperate situation, when the markets no longer trust you, you have to start by doing your homework and then afterwards ask for a revision of the conditions, not to do the opposite. Because you are not in a position of demanding that, you see? So because there was a lack of confidence. So it was extremely painful. But I believe that with other kind of political leadership, some of the negative consequences could have been avoided.
Τώρα, αφήσατε ήδη υπονοούμενα και για τη στάση της ευρωπαϊκής ηγεσίας και για τις ευθύνες των Ευρωπαίων αξιωματούχων. Θέλω να σας ρωτήσω αν πιστεύετε ότι έγιναν σοβαρά λάθη από πλευράς ευρωπαϊκής ηγεσίας στη διαχείριση της ελληνικής κρίσης χρέους. Η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση και το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο υποχρέωσαν τις ελληνικές κυβερνήσεις να ψηφίσουν εξαιρετικά σκληρά μέτρα λιτότητας, να μειώσουν τις δαπάνες και να αυξήσουν υπέρμετρα τους φόρους. Δεν ευθύνονται, κατά τη γνώμη σας, για τη βαθιά ύφεση της ελληνικής οικονομίας και για τις δραματικές επιπτώσεις, κάνατε ήδη κάποιες αναφορές, που είχε αυτή η ύφεση στην ελληνική κοινωνία?
I already replied partially to that issue. Of course, there were shared responsibilities. Having said that, you have to understand why this happened. Let me tell you a story. Now I can be more precise. When this crisis came, I was speaking almost all the time with Angela Merkel because being the leader of the biggest economy, of course, the role of Germany was critically important. And I was asking her to put more money so that the markets could believe that we were going to react and that they should not continue to bet against the bonds of the more vulnerable countries, against Greece, Portugal, Ireland, but to somehow also Spain and Italy. Say, it was, I don't know if you remember the debate about the bazooka. So we need a strong bazooka to convince the markets that they will not win and that the euro will remain a strong currency and that Greece is not going to leave the euro area. And with Merkel, I speak always in English because my German is not sufficiently good, and so, and also she does not speak Portuguese, I have to say. So I speak in English, and I was using a soundbite. Angela, the more you delay, the more you pay at the end. And her answer was very interesting. She said, I know, but I cannot do more now. Because in Germany, the understanding at that moment was that there should be no bailouts, that bailouts were against the treaty. And so it was also the opposition. She wanted to do something, I have no doubts about it, but she was, for instance, very concerned with the position of the Constitutional Court in Germany, the Karlsruhe Court. And so her argument could not be, I'm doing that to support Greece. Her argument could be an ultima ratio argument, I'm doing that to save the euro. And then she was able to do it later. From that point of view, yes, there was a responsibility. I think we should have done much more before.